My brother in Aspen called and asked, "Where's your husband?" I said, "Work trip." Then I added, "No, he's here with your sister, stealing your house fund." We set a trap, and by dawn, they found him frozen out in Fargo. The morning my world shattered, it wasn't a sudden explosion, but a quiet whisper from my brother that confirmed my deepest fears. My husband, the man I trusted with everything, was living a lie, and he was doing it with my sister-in-law. It's a bitter pill to swallow when you realize the person you've built your life with has been systematically dismantling it behind your back. Lucas never calls before 8 in the morning, not unless something's horribly wrong. So when my phone lit up at 6:42 a.m. with his name, my stomach clenched tight even before I answered. Talia, his voice was unusually hesitant, laced with a dread that instantly put me on edge. "Are you sitting down?" I was standing in my kitchen, the morning sun already streaming through the big, beautiful windows of the craftsman home I'd absolutely fallen head over heels for just 3 years ago. The coffee maker gurgled its final notes, filling the air with that comforting morning smell. "Lucas, what in the world is going on?" I poured the fresh brew into my favorite ceramic mug, the one with the hand-painted violets from that charming little shop in Carmel. He took a deep, shaky breath. "Why has your husband checked into an Aspen resort with your sister-in-law?" The mug, my beautiful violet mug, slipped right through my fingers. It hit the hardwood floor with a sickening crash, shattering into a million pieces. Hot coffee splashed across my bare feet, but I barely even felt the burn. "What?" My own voice sounded foreign, a thin, disbelieving whisper. "Carter's sister works at the Elevation Lodge. She just called him because she recognized Tessa checking in with Miles yesterday." I thought maybe. "I mean, Miles told you he was going to Aspen, right?" "Detroit," I whispered, the word feeling like a curse. "He told me he was in Detroit for a compliance audit." The world around me started to spin, a sickening, dizzying tilt. Miles wasn't in Detroit. He was in Aspen with Tessa. I trusted him with everything, I heard myself say, my voice hollow, a mere echo. Our finances, our future, even the deed to our home. My mind flashed back to just last year, sitting across from Miles at our dining table. He was pushing papers toward me, his voice carrying that familiar, reasonable tone he always used when he wanted things his way. "It's just simpler for financing if the deed is in my name," he'd explained, tapping the document with his Mont Blanc pen. "My credit score is higher." I remembered, nodding, even as a prickle of discomfort tickled the back of my neck. I'd transferred a massive $110,000 from my personal savings for the down payment, money I'd been setting aside since my very first job at 22. But his name alone went on the deed. Later, at our housewarming party, I'd overheard him telling our friends about his house, while I stood in the doorway, a tray of appetizers growing heavy in my hands. "The crown molding sold me," he'd said, as if he'd made the decision entirely on his own, as if my monumental contribution didn't even matter. I stepped over the broken mug, ignoring the shards, and moved to my laptop. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. I pulled up Miles' office contact information. 3 rings before his assistant answered. "Rebecca, hi. It's Talia. Is Miles in today?" A pause. "No, he's not scheduled in this week." I thought he was taking personal time. My throat constricted, making it hard to breathe. "Right. Thanks." I hung up and sank into the nearest kitchen chair, the wood cold against my legs. No compliance audit. No Detroit. Then my phone buzzed with a text. "Miles. Signal spotty in Detroit. Call you tonight. Love. You." The trembling in my hands suddenly stopped. A strange, unnerving calm settled over me. I opened our banking app. 3 withdrawals in the past week. $5,000, $3,000, $7,500. All from our joint account, the one where my recent promotion bonus had just been deposited. I closed my eyes, and I saw Tessa at our rehearsal dinner, champagne flute in hand, leaning conspiratorially toward Miles. "She's different from your usual type," she'd said, glancing dismissively at me. "Less vivacious." Miles had laughed it off, but something in his eyes had shifted, something I had foolishly chosen to ignore. My phone rang again. "Lucas." "I'm coming over," he said, before I could even speak. I looked around the house, this beautiful house I'd believed was partly mine. The mortgage statement was addressed only to Miles Harrison. The furniture I'd picked out, but he'd paid for. The life I thought we were building together. The revelation hit me with a physical force, knocking the air right out of my lungs. My marriage wasn't just unraveling, it was a carefully constructed lie. And now I was watching it collapse like a house of cards, leaving me to wonder what in the world would remain when the last card finally fell. I picked up a sharp shard of broken ceramic from the floor. The cut it left across my finger felt distant, less painful than the brutal truth I was finally, irrevocably, facing. The very next day, I found the folder completely by accident. Miles always kept his home office pristine, everything in perfectly labeled files, organized meticulously by year. It was, while I was searching for our tax returns, something I'd suddenly realized I didn't have copies of, that I noticed a cream-colored folder tucked suspiciously behind his golf tournament. Plaques. No label, just there, hidden yet strangely accessible. The first promissory note stared back at me. Dated 8 months ago, $23,750 to Tessa. Miles' signature beneath hers, the paper slightly wrinkled, as if it had been handled again and again. Then another, $31,600. And another, $39,950. My fingers trembled as I totaled the amounts. $95,300. Nearly $100,000. Loaned to my sister-in-law. I sank into Miles' massive leather desk chair, my heart hammering against my ribs so violently I had to press my palm against my chest to try and calm it. This chair, the one that cost more than our entire dining table, the one he insisted on buying even while we were supposedly cutting expenses. This wasn't just an affair, I realized with a sickening lurch. This was calculated. This was a conspiracy. The next morning, armed with my driver's license and wedding certificate, I walked into First National Bank. The branch manager, Mrs. Winters, a woman with a kind but efficient demeanor, studied my identification. Then she gestured toward her office. "What can I help you with today?" "Mrs. Harrison." "I'd like to review all our accounts," I said, meeting her gaze despite the knot in my stomach. Joint and individual. Her fingers clicked across the keyboard. I noticed her wedding ring, modest, worn smooth by decades. "It appears your joint checking account has had several large withdrawals in the past 3 months," she said, turning the monitor slightly. "And there have been transfers to an account ending in 6742. She looked at me, a flicker of sympathy in her eyes. "Is that our savings account?" I kept my back straight, my voice steady. "No, that account is solely in Miles Harrison's name." I felt a jolt of ice in my veins. "Please show me all transactions from our joint accounts for the past year." The evidence accumulated like a mounting snowdrift, each piece colder and heavier than the last. Miles had been systematically draining our joint funds, my money, into his personal accounts. But there was more. 3 credit cards in my name I had never applied for, all carrying balances terrifyingly close to their limits. During a bathroom break, my hands shaking, I checked Tessa's Instagram. There she was, posing in St. Bart's last month, wearing the diamond tennis bracelet I'd admired at Tiffany's. "Sometimes you need to splurge," the caption read. The date aligned perfectly with a $7,500 withdrawal from our joint account. Money Miles had told me was for emergency car repairs for his sister. I remembered Miles' reaction to my promotion last year. His smile hadn't reached his eyes. "That's great, hon," he'd said, then immediately changed the subject to his golf handicap. I'd interpreted it as distraction. Now I recognized it for What it was: blatant resentment. Back at home, I spread the documents across our dining table, the promissory notes, the bank statements, the credit card bills. My throat tightened, reality crashing down on me like a tidal wave. The house I loved, with its craftsman details and the morning light streaming through stained glass, wasn't legally mine, despite my $110,000 down payment. The mortgage statement arrived monthly with only Miles' name. The deed listed him as the sole owner. The promotion bonus I'd been so proud of? Gone. The savings I'd accumulated before marriage, the only funds he couldn't touch, suddenly seemed pitifully inadequate against what I'd lost. My credit score, once a point of pride at 812, was now damaged by debt I never created. I checked it on my phone and watched the number load: 614. Below the threshold for even a decent apartment rental. I built my career on logistics management, I whispered to the empty room, yet I failed to see the systematic dismantling of my own financial security. My hand trembled as I dialed the number for my personal bank, the account I'd opened at 22 with my first real paycheck. The account Miles had called cute when we merged our finances, suggesting I keep it for sentimental reasons. Account balance for ending in 8873, the automated system asked. I punched in my PIN, holding my breath. Your current balance is $17,423.16. Relief, pure and dizzying, flooded through me. He didn't find it. Or perhaps he didn't think it was worth taking. I sank into the dining chair, my fingers curling around my phone. $17,000. Not enough to start over completely, but enough to give me options. Enough for a lawyer. As I stared at my remaining savings, a new thought solidified. Should I confront them immediately with what I knew, or quietly gather more evidence while planning my exit? Direct confrontation might be satisfying, a primal scream of anger and hurt, but strategic patience, I realized, might just save what little I had left, what I'd worked so hard to build. The sun set beyond the windows of the house that was never truly mine. My decision crystallized with a fading light. Miles, in his twisted way, had taught me one valuable lesson: the power of patience in executing a plan. And I was very, very good at planning. 2 days later, at dinner, Miles said casually, fork hovering above his salmon, we should refinance the house. Rates have dropped again. I looked up from my untouched plate. His timing was perfect, right when my guard should be down, in the warm glow of our kitchen with the scent of dill and lemon hanging in the air. Refinance. My voice stayed neutral, despite the frantic alarm bells clanging in my head. Just to lower our monthly payment. He flashed that disarming smile that had once melted all my defenses. The paperwork's in my office. We need to sign by Friday to lock in the rate. I nodded, buying time. What's the rush? Miles shrugged, chewing deliberately. It's a limited time offer. Oh, and Tessa called today. Her boutique supplier in Milan has some exclusive inventory available, but she needs capital fast. My blood ran cold. Another loan? The words escaped before I could filter them. His eyes narrowed slightly. It's an investment opportunity, Talia. She'll pay us back with interest once the shipment sells. Just like the last 5 investments, still outstanding, I thought bitterly. How much? I asked, hating myself for playing along. 15,000 should cover it, he said, as if suggesting we order takeout. My stomach tightened, but I managed to swallow my bite of fish. I'll think about it. Later, while Miles showered, I sat cross-legged on our bed with my laptop, the blue light illuminating my face in the darkness. My search history filled with phrases I never imagined. Typing: financial abuse in marriage, community property laws, Oregon, hidden assets, divorce. The clock read 1:37 a.m. when I finally closed the laptop. Sleep completely evaded me, replaced by memories that now carried a new, sinister weight. Miles insisting I close my separate checking account 6 months after our wedding. His irritation when my promotion came with a salary that approached his. The way he questioned every purchase I made while upgrading his golf clubs without discussion. It was all there, a tapestry of control and deceit I had been too blind to see. The following morning, I started a spreadsheet. Methodical columns tracked every single transaction from our accounts for the past 3 years. Each row told a story: money transferred to accounts I never approved, withdrawals that coincided perfectly with Tessa's social media posts showcasing new jewelry or weekend getaways. I documented everything with the same meticulous precision I brought to managing supply chains at work. Dates, amounts, patterns. The spreadsheet grew into a damning financial autopsy of our entire marriage. My phone rang Thursday afternoon while I was reviewing home equity laws. Talia, it's Carter. Tessa's husband's voice sounded strained, unfamiliar. My hand tightened around the phone. Carter, hi. I think we need to talk. He paused. Something doesn't add up with these trips Tessa's been taking. Relief washed over me, sudden and startling, like a splash of cold water. I wasn't alone anymore. When can you meet? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. That evening, Miles cornered me in his home office, waving the refinance papers like a triumphant flag. The room smelled of his sandalwood cologne and printer ink, a scent I now associated with deceit. You haven't signed these yet. His tone suggested I'd forgotten to pick up milk, not potentially signed away my claim to her home. I looked at the papers, then at the man I once believed would never hurt me. What exactly am I signing, Miles? Just standard refinancing documents, he sighed, extending a pen. You've always been overthinking things. Just sign the papers, don't you trust me? The question hung between us, a raw challenge. 3 years ago, I would have signed without hesitation, eager to prove my trust. But trust, like so many things between us, had been systematically undermined. Trust isn't blind, Miles. It's earned through honesty. My voice came out steadier than I expected. I'd like to review these with my own financial advisor first. His face hardened, the mask slipping. Since when do you have a financial advisor? Since I realized I needed one. I held his gaze, my heart hammering against my ribs, but refusing to back down. I manage multi-million-dollar logistics systems for a living, Miles. Did you really think I wouldn't eventually notice what's happening with our finances? Something flickered across his face, surprise, maybe even a sliver of respect before his mask snapped back into place. Fine, review them, but I need these signed by tomorrow. He left the office, his footsteps heavy on the hardwood. I exhaled slowly, my hands trembling less than they would have a week ago. The next day, Carter met me at a coffee shop 3 towns over. The distance felt necessary, like we were planning a jailbreak. Tess has been hiding these. He slid several credit card statements across the table. Found them when I was looking for our tax documents. I scanned the pages, my suspicions confirmed in stark black and white. Charges at the Elevation Lodge in Aspen. On dates that perfectly aligned with the emergency loans Miles had convinced me to give Tessa. She told me they were business trips to meet vendors, Carter said, his voice hollow with the pain of betrayal. I believed her. I recognized the pain in his eyes, the special ache of realizing you've been a fool for someone you loved. Miles dismisses everything I say lately, I told him, like I'm being irrational for asking questions about our finances. Carter nodded. Tessa does the same thing. Makes me feel crazy for even asking. For the first time in weeks, my shoulders relaxed slightly. Carter listened, actually listened, without interrupting or dismissing my concerns. The simple act felt revolutionary after years of Miles subtly undermining my perceptions. I think they're planning another trip, Carter said. Tessa's been secretive about her schedule next month. I straightened in my chair, an idea forming, cold and precise. Miles has a travel rewards account I still have access to. We could track their next booking. A plan took shape between us over cooling coffees, the power of having an ally, of being believed. straightening my spine and steadying my voice. That night, I watched Miles pack for what he called a quick business trip to Chicago. He tossed his wallet onto the dresser while gathering toiletries. When he stepped into the bathroom, I moved swiftly. His blue debit card slid out of his wallet, replaced by my library card, nearly identical in dimensions and color. The cool weight of the real card in my palm felt like reclaiming a small, potent piece of power. Through the bathroom door, I heard water running as Miles brushed his teeth, utterly unaware that his carefully constructed house of cards had just lost its very foundation. My brother Lucas would later call it elegant vengeance. I called it logistics management. 2 days later, the confirmation email arrived while I was sipping my morning coffee, the same morning sunlight now casting a more hopeful glow on my kitchen. I verified every detail. Last time, 2 first-class tickets, rerouted from Aspen, Colorado, to Fargo, North Dakota. Mid-February, when temperatures reliably plummet below zero. I selected their return date for 5 days later, knowing Miles hated cold weather almost as much as he hated being inconvenienced. "Are you sure about this?" Carter asked, leaning against my kitchen counter. His eyes, so similar to Tessa's, but infinitely more honest, watched me with careful concern. "I've never been more certain of anything," I said, closing my laptop with a satisfying click. The beauty is in the details. I used Miles' travel points instead of the credit card, so he won't get any alerts. And their connecting flight in Minneapolis gives just enough time for them to grab lunch without questioning their final destination. Carter nodded slowly. "And the card switch?" I opened my purse and removed Miles' wallet, taken from his briefcase while he showered this morning. The Navy Library card nestled exactly where his debit card should be. Both rectangular. Both plastic, similar enough at a glance. "Size and placement matter in sleight of hand," I said, returning the wallet to his briefcase. He never actually looks at his cards until he needs them. That evening, Miles packed with military precision, folding each shirt with practiced efficiency. I noticed he packed his new cashmere sweater, the one I'd never seen him wear to work. "Detroit in February," he sighed dramatically. "At least the audit team booked a decent hotel." I nodded, careful to keep my expression neutral. "Don't forget your debit card for incidentals." He patted his wallet. "Already packed." He'd call when he landed tomorrow. Morning brought a flurry of activity. Miles kissed me goodbye, a perfunctory peck that barely grazed my cheek. I watched from the doorway as he loaded his suitcase into the Audi, noting how he checked his reflection in the driver's side window before sliding in. 12 hours later, my phone lit up with his name. "Hey babe," he said, his voice dripping with false cheer. "Just checked into the elevation lodge. You should see this place. The mountain views are incredible." My heart pounded against my ribs, but my voice remained steady. "Elevation lodge? In Detroit." A brief pause. "Did I say Detroit?" "Sorry, working on 2 projects at once. The audit team is in Aspen, not Detroit. Last minute change." He laughed, that hollow sound I now recognized as his. "Tell. The cell reception is spotty on the mountain. Got to run to a meeting. Love you." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, a strange, triumphant calm settling over me. 3 hours later, another call. This time, panic edged his voice. "Talia, something's wrong. With my cards, they're all being declined." "That's strange," I said, stirring the pasta sauce I was making for dinner with Carter and Lucas. "Are you sure you brought the right ones?" "Yes." His voice cut off, then returned with forced control. "Listen, I need you to wire money to the hotel. We're in a difficult situation." I set down my wooden spoon. "We? Who's we, Miles?" Another silence, longer this time. In the background, I heard a female voice, Tessa's unmistakable whine. "It's not what you think," he started, but we both knew it was exactly what I thought. "You're right about one thing," I said, my voice shockingly calm. "You are in a difficult situation, but it's not Aspen. Check your boarding pass, Miles. You're in Fargo, North Dakota. The forecast calls for -15 degrees tonight. His sharp intake of breath was audible. What the hell did you do? The same thing you did, I answered, leaning against the counter. I made a unilateral decision about our shared resources. How does it feel to be on the receiving end? This is insane, he hissed. You can't just strand us here. Actually, I can. Just like you could drain our accounts without discussing it. Just like you could put our house solely in your name despite my down payment. The calm in my voice surprised even me. Consider this a lesson in consequences. Talia, please. His voice shifted to the gentle, reasonable tone he always used when manipulating me. Wire the money and we'll talk about everything when I get back. I'll explain everything. As he spoke, I glanced at Carter and Lucas, who had paused their conversation, watching me intently. Their presence steadied me, reminded me I wasn't alone in this fight. When Miles called begging for money to get home from this mistake, I hesitated for only a second. Should I rescue him and preserve a chance for explanation, or let natural consequences unfold for someone who had been systematically deceiving me for years? No, I finally said. Figure it out yourself. I hung up as Carter slid a folder across the table. Inside were bank statements, screenshots of Tessa's social media posts showing luxury purchases on days matching my emergency loans to her, and a meticulously detailed timeline of suspicious transactions. The lawyer can meet us tomorrow at 2, Lucas said, serving himself pasta. She's already drafting settlement terms. I nodded, a profound weight lifting from my shoulders. I've frozen the joint accounts. He can't touch anything else. By morning, the texts started rolling in. Miles' messages evolved from commanding unfreeze the accounts now to pleading, please Talia, I'm sorry, we made a mistake. Tessa took a different approach, posting a vague rant about family betrayal on Instagram. Within hours, 3 mutual friends had texted me asking what was happening. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I met with the lawyer, signed the necessary paperwork, and arranged for Miles and Tessa to be served the moment they returned. Let them spend a few more days in the frigid emptiness of North Dakota. It was nothing compared to the cold reality waiting for them at home. 2 days later, after the Fargo incident, Miles paced across our living room, his expensive leather shoes clicking against the hardwood floors I'd lovingly restored last summer. Beside him, Tessa perched on the edge of the sofa, her designer handbag hastily tucked behind a throw pillow. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, highlighting the tense lines around their mouths. Talia, this has all been a terrible misunderstanding. Miles spread his hands in a placating gesture. His voice carried that familiar, reasonable tone that once made me feel safe, but now only disgusted me. The investments we made with those funds would have benefited both of us. Both of us. I repeated, keeping my voice steady, my anger a cold, hard knot in my stomach. Tessa leaned forward, her eyes wide with practiced sincerity. My business opportunity needed short-term capital. I was going to pay everything back with interest once the deals closed. She tugged at her silk scarf, a nervous habit I'd noticed over years of family gatherings. We never meant to hurt you. Miles moved closer, his cologne, the one I bought him for Christmas, now smelling cloying and artificial. Look, I know you're upset about Aspen. That was poor judgment on our part. He sighed dramatically. But we need to be reasonable adults here. If you force this issue, I'll have no choice but to sell the house. The threat hung in the air between us. The house I found, the house I paid for, the house that wasn't legally mine. Reasonable, I echoed, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. I walked to the sideboard where I'd placed a leather binder. My fingers traced the cool surface before I picked it up, its weight substantial and reassuring. Let's talk about reasonable. Miles rolled his eyes slightly. If this is another spreadsheet. It's not just a spreadsheet. I opened the binder and placed it on the coffee table between us. It's evidence. The first page contained copies of the promissory notes, 15 in total, each with Tessa's flourishing signature at the bottom. Next came bank statements highlighting transfers from our joint account, followed by screenshots from Tessa's Instagram showing her wearing a new watch the same day she claimed a family emergency required a $7,500 loan. I managed logistics for a Fortune 500 company for 8 years before my promotion, I said, turning another page, revealing a timeline of transactions matched against their travel dates. Did you really think I wouldn't notice systematic theft? Tessa's face flushed a furious red. These were loans between family members. Nothing illegal about that. Loans require consent from both parties whose money is being taken, I replied, turning to the next section. Here's what my lawyer calls pattern and practice, 26 instances where you discuss my money as if it were exclusively Miles to give. Miles' confident facade cracked slightly. Your lawyer. On cue, the doorbell rang. I checked my watch right on time. That would be her now. When I returned with Sharon Peterson, attorney at law, Miles had loosened his tie and Tessa was frantically texting someone, Carter, probably, with more lies. Let's cut to the chase, Sharon said, placing her briefcase on the table next to my binder. We've prepared settlement terms requiring full financial restitution. She slid documents across the table. Miles skimmed the first page, his face paling. This is ridiculous. Talia's overreacting to some family loans. Family loans. I leaned forward, a cold fire in my eyes. Is that what you called them? When you were drinking champagne in Aspen while I worked 60-hour weeks to earn that bonus you spent. Tessa suddenly stood, grabbing the documents. With a theatrical flourish, she tore them in half, then quarters. Paper fragments fluttered to the floor like confetti. Their problem solved. Her smile was triumphant as she dropped back onto the sofa. Sharon didn't react except to raise an eyebrow. She removed her tablet from her briefcase and tapped the screen. Our television flickered to life, displaying the very same documents, now projected from the cloud storage where we'd secured them. As I was saying, Sharon continued smoothly. The settlement requires full restitution of $95,300 taken without consent, plus $15,000 in legal fees. Miles stared at the screen, then at me. For the first time, I saw something new in his eyes, fear. You can't prove anything, he whispered, but the certainty had drained from his voice, replaced by a desperate tremor. Page 17 shows the court orders we've already obtained for your banking records, I said quietly. Page 21 shows the communications between you and Tessa, planning what you called the next withdrawal strategy. Sharon tapped her tablet again. We've also prepared documentation for your employer's ethics committee, which will only be submitted if payment isn't received according to the schedule outlined in Section 4. Miles sank into the armchair, suddenly looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. You planned all this? I learned from the best, I answered, a chilling calm in my voice. Later that evening, after Miles packed an overnight bag and left for a hotel, I wandered through the house I loved but now felt utterly tainted. In the study, empty spaces on the wall showed where family photos once hung. He'd taken those, but left my photography awards displayed prominently on the bookshelf. A small act of spite that oddly made me smile. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. HR called Miles in for a meeting tomorrow. Rumor is they're transferring him to the Boise office after the ethics review. I ran my fingers along the crown. Molding Miles once claimed sold him on the house. The wood felt different now, not like a prison, but like a quiet reminder that beautiful things can come with hidden costs. And sometimes, when the cards finally fall, you discover you're stronger than the house you built your dreams around. 6 months later, morning sunlight pours through floor-to-ceiling windows of my downtown Portland condo, casting geometric patterns across polished concrete floors. No creaky floorboards, no crown molding that once sold Miles on our craftsman home. This 23rd floor sanctuary belongs entirely to me, deed, mortgage, and all. I sip coffee from a handmade mug I purchased at the Saturday market, reviewing quarterly projections for my new regional territory. Since my promotion to VP last month, I've been restructuring logistics chains across 3 states rather than just managing other people's messes. The notification from my investment app reminds me my portfolio rebalancing finished overnight, diversified across emerging tech, established healthcare, and sustainable energy. Never again will my financial security depend on someone else's honesty. My phone rings. Lucas. Good morning, I answer, smiling at the parallel to that devastating call 6 months ago. Everything okay? Just checking in. Mom wanted to know if you're still coming for dinner Sunday. Wouldn't miss it. I trace my finger along the edge of my coffee mug. You know, I never properly thanked you for calling me that morning. It hurt like hell, but it opened my eyes. You're doing all right now, though, he said, a note of pride in his voice. I glance at my calendar, where I've blocked Thursday evening for the financial literacy workshop. I'm teaching at the community center. Better than all right. I'm helping other women recognize financial manipulation before they lose everything. After hanging up, I adjust my blazer and check the time. My small dinner gathering starts in an hour. Lucas and Carter are coming, along with Sandra, the attorney whose ruthless precision helped me reclaim what was mine. The doorbell rings early. Carter stands there holding a bottle of champagne and a small potted plant. I know it's not housewarming traditional, he says, a wry smile on his face, but I figured you've had enough flowers that die after a week. I welcome him inside, taking the plant, a small jade with glossy leaves, something that grows stronger with time. I like the metaphor. Later, as we all raise glasses around my sleek dining table, Sandra offers a toast, too, recognizing the difference between a house and a home. And to boundaries, I add, both legal and personal. After dinner, while Lucas helps Sandra with her coat, Carter joins me at the window overlooking the city lights. I unfold the architectural plans I've been reviewing. My first investment property, a duplex in a developing neighborhood. Breaking ground next month? He asks, studying the blueprints. If permits come through on schedule. My phone chimes within. Email notification. Final confirmation of my keynote at next month's regional leadership conference. His fingers brush mine as we both reach to turn the page. The contact sends a quiet warmth up my arm, nothing like the desperate need I once felt for Miles' approval. Dinner again. Next week. Carter asks, his voice carefully neutral. Just us, maybe? As I welcome the possibility in his eyes, I wonder if relationships built from shared wounds can truly heal into something stronger, or if sometimes the wisest path forward is complete independence. What would you choose? Embracing new possibilities with someone who understands your pain, or building a life entirely on your own terms? I fold the blueprints and smile. Either way, I say, a quiet confidence in my voice, I'll be standing on ground that's mine alone.